Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50 with Dallas and Michael. Dallas, I love the name of this one.
Yep. No idea what it's about, but you're gonna like it.
Your bank doesn't care about you, and that's okay.
Thanks, Michael.
Did I get that right?
You did. We both, to explain where this came from, we both have notes, the note section in your iPhone where we just write down podcast ideas, and some of them I think are fleshed out more than others. This is one that I wrote down a while ago, and I had to read it and think about it again to go, what was I even talking about when I wrote that down? But I've realised where the situation was and what it came from. So for long-time listeners of the podcast, this would be one of those topics where I'll probably rant for 5 minutes and Michael will nod his head at the end and then shut it off before I get too worked up. But if you've listened to other rants that I've gone in the past, one of them was called No One's Coming, where I basically said, you're responsible for your retirement planning outcomes. No one else is in charge of that. It's not your employer's job. It's not the government's job. It's not, your kids or your parents or anyone else or your friends or your family or whatever. It's your sort of responsibility to take ownership of that. I think where the idea of this came from with the banking thing is that there's a thing that I've noticed in recent years with people's perceptions or attitude towards their bank, which is that, and I think that banks in general have played into this by, if you look at ads on TV for CBA or NAB or whatever, it'll show like a smiling face and someone starting a small business and NAB saying, we want small business to thrive, and or CBA is sponsoring someone choppering in from to save someone from a boat that's capsizing or something bizarre like that. And the hidden message with all this is that we're a big bank, but that's okay. We care about you as an individual, and we care about your feelings and your hopes and your dreams. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. Your bank doesn't care about you. You are just a number. And I think this is an interesting one because, obviously if you're listening to this, I find often older people will say things about, back in the day, where your bank manager really cared about you and, or the bank knew you as an individual. The bank never cared about you. That never happened. What actually happened was any bank exists to basically, it's a very simple business model. They take in money on deposit and pay someone, 1% interest, and then they lend it out with less in some cases. Again, the simple model here is I take in money, I pay the person who's depositing that money with me, I pay them 1% or 5% or maybe 12% back in or 0.1% now. And then I on-lend that money to someone else at a much higher percentage interest rate. And that's, someone gives me money and I basically pay them 0.5% interest, and then I lend it to someone to buy a new car and they pay me 8% interest, or I lend it to someone to buy a house and they pay me 3% interest, or they take out a small business overdraft and they pay me 6% or whatever the figure is here. So I guess when you think about it, the bank, all a bank exists for is to facilitate that transfer. The bank, and even when we talk about the bank as though it's a person, it's just a web of transactions there. That's all that happens is money comes in, money goes out at a markup. It's no different to, if you go to a shop to buy something, they buy things at wholesale and then they sell them out at retail price at a slightly higher price. You don't go to Woolworths and say, oh, Woolworths cares about me as a person. No. Woolworths' job is to go and buy that cow off that farmer, break it down into small pieces and sell it to the retail consumer.
It's purely convenience.
Purely convenience. That's what you're paying for. And so that's what your bank...
And you don't expect to pay wholesale.
You don't expect to pay wholesale.
At Woolworths,
you don't. And you don't expect that Woolworths... So I guess that's the two parts of it, is that you understand that you're paying for convenience, and you also understand that Woolworths is there to make a profit. They don't actually care about you as an individual. So Woolworths is probably a good example, because their advertising is all around, a smiling mother with a small child in the pram, and something cute happens between the staff and and you realise, I don't know about you, but when I go to Woolworths, that's not the vibe I have. They've got a heap of food in there. I get some, I ran it through the scanner on my own, and then I pay for it, and they make a profit, and everyone's happy with that relationship.
Yeah.
So, or if I go to, for example, if someone goes to buy a new car, you don't go, oh, the guy who's selling me the car cares about me and my happiness as a person, and cares about my, me flourishing over the long term. He's bought a car. He's bought a car at trade-in prices for not much. He's now polished it up, tied it up, got a roadworthy certificate, and he's now selling it to me for a higher price. And for that, I get the convenience of going there. He hands me the keys, and away I go. But I know, I don't kid myself, that his job in life is to sell me a car and to help me be happy and flourish over the long term. That's not the dynamic of the relationship. I think when it comes to banks, maybe because of their advertising and because of different things that happened in the past, people get really upset when banks do things that show that they don't care about them. And I just think my point here today is not that banks should do the wrong thing. It's that you need to accept that your bank doesn't actually care about you. So when they do things that show that, things that maybe aren't even illegal or immoral, but they're just things that show a lack of caring or a lack of understanding or a lack of whatever, that's just a bank being a bank.
Where I find that manifests itself most predominantly is I hear comments all the time by people say, no one at the bank's contacted me to tell me that we could get a lower interest rate.
Yeah.
And,
So that's
and what often happens is that if you do go and ask the question
you'll get a
of
lower
your
rate.
bank, can you put this on a lower rate? They do review it at that point in time, and then what happens? They put it on a lower rate. Then I hear the person say, no one. They could have contacted me. No one contacted me, and that's a fair comment. They just don't have the systems to do that.
No.
Like they don't have. I mean, it's just it's a collection of individuals. The bank.
Yes.
Besides getting to the point of why would they do that when they're in the business of making money, but it is one of those things that it's a valid point. It's a valid rant, Dallas.
Yeah, I know.
Because I think there is that perception there that
the bank should.
Because
care
I hear
about
comments,
me.
they should have contacted me to put this on a lower rate.
Yeah.
And I think the assumption there is that the bank, does and should have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily.
No.
And they simply just. I mean, I've seen some of the bank systems.
Yeah.
They're archaic.
Yeah.
Like these things were built in the.
Yeah.
What you see on your internet banking is not what the bankers actually
seeing,
operate out of. They operate out of like
shoeboxes of bits of paper.
Those mainframe computers with little pop-up rectangles and that old green writing that you used to see 20 years ago on computers and things like that. So I mean, there's effectively no scanning system that can scan across people's files and say
this poor
person should be on a better rate. Separate to that, what I think everyone should do roughly every 3 years is go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And what that's their entire budget. So basically, go through all of their budget. Look at insurances. Look at interest rates. Look at all those things. And certainly go and ask the question.
And I think the point, with a bank, as you just touched on there, Michael, it's not when I say your bank doesn't care about you. It's also not to say that your bank's out to get you. You know what I mean? It is genuinely that they just don't care about you. You are just a number, and that's the dynamic of that relationship. So don't think that NAB or CBA is out to try and stitch you up somehow. They're just this mammoth, archaic system of underlying transactions and a web of different money in and money out. You as Joe Blow down the street, they're not trying to take care of you, and they're not trying to shaft you. They just don't care about you. You are a number on a piece of paper to them, and that's just the way it is. So, again, the underlying responsibility there is whether that's how the system, whether the system should be like that or whether it shouldn't be like that is to me a moot point, because again, that is how that is. The only way to get the outcomes that you need from your bank are to take charge of that. And as you say, Michael, that's why we look at that. We recommend that to everyone every as a rule 3 years, is to go back through everything. You wouldn't, and I don't think this is why I think the bank specifically is why I wanted to rant about that today, because people don't think of that in other ways. Like your insurance company's job is basically to try and get you to pay as much in premiums and to pay out the smallest amount in claims. And this is all, I sound like someone who's ranting against the financial system, but they exist to run a profitable business. They want you to pay as much in premiums as possible and not pay out a huge amount in claims. Your bank exists the same way. They want you to pay the most amount on your home loan, and they want to pay the smallest amount on your deposits. They want to keep the spread of those two transactions. It's not, as you say there, we kind of don't get angry at that in any other setting, but when it comes to our bank, we feel as though they know us. I've been banking with NAB for 30 years, or I've been with CBA for however long, or that's not whether that is the world that we did used to live in 30 years ago, where the bank manager looked you in the eye and he knew you and you knew him, and that's not the world we live in now. And so your bank doesn't care about you, even if they did want to help you out. Their system, they're just so overwhelmed with clients and transactions and different things that have to happen. Then they're never going to go out of their way to try and go, oh, actually this person could be on this other product, and let's help them do that, and that'll be better for them. Both because, number one, that's not how they make their money, and number two, even if they wanted to, they couldn't. So I think I often, like I say, I have the title of this and I don't really know my point here, but again, it's like the No One's Coming podcast, where, okay, you can either see this as a real slight against our modern society and go, well, that's not how a capitalist system should work. They should care about me and they should be wanting me to be, thriving financially. And I guess my point is, I just put that whole question aside. That's not relevant. If you really want to change the system, go and run for Parliament and go and sit on the Senate Committee for Finance and do these things and set up a Royal Commission and make all those things happen. In the meantime, we have to operate within the system that we're in, and that is the system, is that your bank doesn't care about you, and the only one who cares about you is yourself, and that's when it comes to your banking, when it comes to your loans, when it comes to your money that you've got in a bank account putting on deposit. You are responsible for getting the best possible outcomes, and your bank is not going to do that for you.
Good little rant. How long did that go for?
That was only about 5-6 minutes, I think. So these rants, as I say, they're always a nice little short, sharp one where I just spout off the top of my head, and then and you sort of sit there and go, okay, well, sure, mate, whatever you reckon.
Okay, I think it was a good topic because in hindsight, I think over the years people have often made. I've often heard comments where and they didn't contact me. I had to go and contact them and actually ask them to put this on a lower rate, and then they did that. And I'm wondering now why they just didn't do that automatically.
And that's
so I think there is an assumption that
the bank cares about you.
Yeah, the bank cares about you, but also has the systems to do that. They just don't have the systems to do that.
Yeah.
Like I've seen their systems.
Yeah.
And the systems are some of the oldest that have ever existed.
Well, again, if you think of it as, when you're in any huge complex system like NAB or CBA or whatever, they've been around for 100 years, which is good in terms of stability and strength and all the rest of it. But that normally means that they've got, technology and those sorts of systems that have been carried along for 50 years, and so anytime they do something different, they're at risk of breaking the whole system. So again, their incentive is if you've got a home loan with NAB and you're paying 4% on that, and you're paying that every week, there is no possible incentive for them to go and make that change. Both because A, they're making more profit now while you're paying that higher interest rate, and B, the minute that they transact on that, that's a lot of man hours, that's a lot of work required, there's a lot of risk of something going wrong or you choosing to go elsewhere. So they're just going to basically say, leave that, don't touch it, don't do that, because as you say, with an old archaic system, anything that we touch we could wreck. So just leave it as it is, and we're making more profit. So it's kind of that double whammy of, if you think that your bank is going to go out of their way to do that for you, they're not, because it doesn't make sense financially and it doesn't make sense from a system point of view. So,
yeah, I find that when you actually do get a contact at a bank and say, hey, this interest rate is quite high, it hasn't moved with the times. Yeah. Can we explore different products and things like that? They're willing to help. And I've never had them unwilling to help at that point in time.
That's, I guess, a good point there, Michael, is that when I say the bank doesn't care about you, there may be an individual at that bank that is going to help you. And that's kind of like we've said before, we've looked at this with a lot of clients where when you find the right individual, they will go out of their way to help. Like that is still their job. It's not to say that, and it's not like I'm going on a rant against anyone who works at these organisations. It's not like people who work at NAB are bad people. In fact, the opposite. You know, our bank manager works at NAB and we have a good relationship with her. She is very helpful in the things that we are asking her to do. But I still know that it's my job to say, hey, Leanne, I need to review this and we need to look at this and this is what we're trying to make happen. And then it's her job to help us make that happen. I'm never going to sit there and go, oh, well, you know, it's Leanne's job to come and tell me that I could be using a different product that gives me a lower rate or anything like that.
Yeah, that's right. Good place to wrap up. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.